TV.
Welcome everybody, my name is Leon Verrooy and we're with a new episode of Playgrounds TV, The Book Club. And tonight we have a very special guest and of course our expert Spiridon. Tonight we're going to discuss beautiful art together with Björn Hurri. He's the creator of beautiful artwork, concept art, illustrations for different kind of clients. He worked for God of War 4, League of Legends, you name it, big AAA games, and he was involved. May I have a big heads up for Björn Hurri. Welcome in our studio, Björn.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes, and I have a question immediately. We're kicking off. How did you start becoming an illustrator? When did you decide to do this?
I'm one of those kind of old dogs in the industry where I started, I think, 99, 2000. I found a little corner on internet where there was a lot of artists kind of starting to figure out digital painting. And some of them were working in games, and it so really, really excited me. And I thought, like, I should really go into that and explore it. And a few years later, I bought my first Intuos, where I started doing digital art together with them on a forum. And then it just grew to this obsession. And I started getting more and more clients. And I was hooked.
You were hooked. Hey, and but those clients didn't came by accident, right? So did you actually actively reached out, or how did you presented their work? You just mentioned you started off in 2000, so there weren't that many events. There was no Instagram or anything like that. So how were you getting in contact with those who you wanted to work with?
Well, it was the very early the industry, right? There was nothing established. There was hardly anything at all on internet. And what was interesting was that it was such beginning of a new frontier, and all the artists that were there are now extremely senior artists and art directors and pillars of the art industry. And I tried to catch up to them because I had to work with manual labor at the same time. So I wasn't able to fully devote all my time to art for the first 5 years of finding concept art. So I was doing manual labor and doing art at night and weekends, and just filling online sketchbooks with my art and my creations, and just trying to learn it and trying to show I was interested in learning it. And because I was so active, a lot of eyes were on me, and I was talking to all the influential similar artists trying to make it into the industry, and it just became this kind of pool of creativity, and people were interested in it, obviously, because they want concept artists. So it ended up just getting offers constantly, and more traction, and more a foothold.
Hey, you mentioned that you were trying to get the skills and to get as good as your examples. How did you work? Because now there are like a lot of tutorials online that you can follow. There are like a lot of courses. But how did you gain those skills? Were you like drawing every day in a sketchbook by reference, or how did you got that good?
That definitely drawing in sketchbooks. I have over 70 finished sketchbooks in my archive, and I drew around one sketchbook a month when I were able to devote my full time to art, plus an equal amount of digital, plus client work. But how I started learning was, I think, a lot of it back in the day of early days of concept art was a lot of forum activity. And there was a lot of artists that were openly sharing their experiments and openly testing things out and discussing processes and discussing what Photoshop does. And we all had to learn together. And it was this kind of back and forth of more or less writing tutorials to each other of how this works. So I was thinking how this would be resolved in doing it that way. And it was this kind of hot pot of experiments. It was really a fascinating period.
Hey, and what was for you the biggest challenge what is for you the biggest challenge being a concept artist nowadays? Still, if you look back.
Yeah, the hardest part is to come up with something that is interesting to look at, because my specialization at the moment is pre-production, which means whatever I create today for a client will be released in 4 to 5 years, approximately. So it's very important to try to have fresh ideas, to be able to visualize these ideas in as a distinct and clear manner as possible, so that in 3, 4, 5 years, when someone sees it, they go, "Oh wow, I've never seen that before." And you don't want to repeat something that's trendy today, because in 4 years it's not going to be, it's going to be done.
All right, I can imagine. Hey, and you use like a lot of you have of course also art books you like and you're very influenced by, and Spiridon knows everything about it. So let's see what you bring up. What's one of your most favorite art books, Björn?
I have quite a few of them, and they are not really like specifically concept art books. There are a range of them, but one in particular is a photograph book by, I think he's Polish. Let me look it up.
What's his name? I want to hear you butcher it.
Yeah, yeah, here we go. Jan Saldek. He's probably not even Polish. He's
Oh, this is too
probably
easy, man. This is too easy.
probably from somewhere else. But he has this really expressive
Mm.
photographs in it's like look into a madman's love letter to like obsession over these women, kind of. And it's
Yeah.
so fascinating, and it makes me imagine stories about these characters, and it's so fascinating to see. And every time I flip through it, I want to go paint. I want to create this story with texture and narrative and personality, and usually they are not beautiful. Usually they have some inherent flaw in them, or some dust and scratches. And it's not this pristine representation of a thought, but it's this rawness to it that it's so fast. It's inspiring.
I think it's super interesting that you say that you're going back to it and every time you want to draw. Do you have this for a long time, and do you think a book like this has made you a better artist?
Yeah, for sure. I go back to it now and then because I don't want to dilute. I don't want to dilute the impression I get from it. So it's like a nostalgia. Like I can think about it more than I look in it, because it has such a driving factor to my imagination. And another interesting aspect to it is that it's rare. It's a rare book. You can't get it. You can only get it used.
But it's from Taschen, right? So they don't sell it anymore?
No, not as far as I know.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But it's a really, really, it's very like kind of the wardrobe they have on and things like that. It's quite erotic, but it's also very like a magical traveling people. It's very kind of tribal in some way, or
I know what you mean. Okay, yeah.
it's but he also photographs with the symbols in mind, and yeah, it becomes the strength. It's yeah, I think about it more than I look in it.
Maybe.
I can't.
Sorry, Spiridon.
Oh, good. I was just trying to say, I can't imagine you being a collector that is hoarding stuff. You're probably very selective about what you're buying, and only have a few books where you're like really like, okay, I gotta have this.
Yeah.
So there's no way that you only have that one. There's more.
Oh yeah, I have more. I have more different ones, but I don't have many. That's the thing. I have I'd say maybe 10
What about concept art books? Is there anything where you're like, okay, this is a really good art book, or something that has made you a better freelancer, or something like that?
Yeah, I think the one book that I haven't sent you guys photographs of, but it's I think it's a handbook for all concept artists, which was very informative in the early
Skillful
days.
Huntsman.
The Skillful Huntsman.
Yeah.
It is like in any concept artist's arsenal, I think. It's a fascinating book. At the time, it was like an eye opener for me.
Yeah.
Oh, is this what the things you can do when you have an education in it? Because I'm self-taught and I haven't gone anywhere to learn this. So I've been, like I mentioned earlier, like I had to be in forums and learning by doing and kind of by osmosis, trying to filter and take in everything. So back when I bought that book, I was like, okay, this is educational aspect of it. So like I don't have, and I just looked through it, absorbed it, started breaking it down and trying to learn it. Mm-hmm. Which kind of takes me to another book that's kind of concepty and learning is the Gurney, Color and Light.
How old is that one? James Gurney, he did multiple books, right? So
yeah, I'm not sure how old this is. It's probably quite old.
Yeah.
2010.
Yeah.
But this is one of those that you dip back into and you learn more and you think you know it and then you dip back into it again and then it's like a whole new book again and you're like, oh shit, okay, I did it.
Like a good movie. Yeah.
Like a good movie, yeah, exactly. So I keep going back to that one, like take time for myself, sit on the sofa and take just one chapter and try to analyze what he's actually talking about. And every time I can go back to the same chapter and it's almost like the Matrix. The text changes, and I see some completely new sentence. Yeah. Okay, I need to go back and think of it. And then I try to apply it.
Yeah.
And then a third one, which for like the concept artist, the anatomy.
Oh yeah.
For the artist. Back in 2000, when I worked at a big studio, I bought this one because the lead 3D artist had it, and it's like for the modeler almost. You can go layer by layer and really descriptive in form. And back in 2006-07, this was very informative to me, where I am thinking in 3D a lot. So seeing a guidebook for a 3D artist in the sense of, okay, I can flip forms in my brain far better after looking through this book.
But you're not using 3D in your work, right? Like you start from sketches.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm fully 2D, but it's the perception of it. Like in my mind, I see all my creations moving and turning. So it's important to understand, what a hand looks like in 3D space.
Hey,
so it's not.
Can I ask a question? I can imagine when you're showing the book of photography of Jan Sedak that you just showed us, and you're saying, okay, this is photography, but I see so many layers and textures and story in it. But it's a different source than, for example, an art book on a specific game. Do you think, like, using your library of art books, it's sometimes difficult to copy, right? So if you're seeing a lot of books of the movies, of movies or like from games, and you look at the artwork, it's kind of looking at the competition. But I can imagine that if you look to these kind of sources, like photography or architecture or like old masters or whatever, different kind of topics, different kind of sources, it also helps you, in my perspective, but tell me if I'm wrong, to define your own, to create more your own imagery or your own story instead of that you have the examples that are already crystallized by another concept artist. Is that
Absolutely.
something? Is that also how you work? Are you using like original sources more
Yeah.
when you create your
Yeah.
own work?
Yeah, I hardly ever look at other artists' work for inspiration, because there's always this inherent risk of cannibalism in the industry, like you kind of eat your own.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to go outside of that circle and be influenced so that I can filter more sources of input into the industry rather than filter what's in the industry, and then it'll be just a derivative of what's already existed. And worse is if I do that on to a client that's in 4 years going to release their product, and everybody will go like, oh, that's game X's characters. You know, it creates a weak and in the long run weakens creative output.
Yeah, because especially in concept art, you have to deliver ideas, right? So fresh views, new perspectives, because otherwise it all looks the same. So that's why I like it so much that you're showing also these kind of books as well.
Yeah, which brings me to one that's absolutely mesmerizing. It's Alexander McQueen's
Yeah. Okay.
book. His creations, it's like walking, talking concept art at a level that's at the top. Sadly, he passed,
Yes. He passed away.
but his fashion and his creations are mind-blowing. And just seeing how he puts textures and colors into wearable fashion that has like no flaw to it, which is so fascinating, because when I design something, I design it in more than one angle. From all angles, I have to break it down fully. I have to define texture. I have to define reflectivity. I have to, you know, what happens when they raise the arm? What happens when they duck? All these aspects has to be visualized and solved. Then seeing something like that is actually in real world to that level, that which is mind blowing. And just looking at, oh, where's the seams? How are the textures layered? Like feathers on the shoulders. Like that person can move without problem. They won't be like a box that just has to, you know. And when they turn, the whole image breaks. You know, seeing that is super fascinating. And yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring up Alexander McQueen, because I think also in character design, like fashion is so important. Like if you look at the design, almost 75% of it is, of course, like what they're wearing, right? It's all the costumes and their armor or the objects around them, and of course there is like the mass and anatomy and the face, but like the huge part of it is also like what they wear, and that gives them also a lot of identity. So I can imagine like an Alexander McQueen is like experimenting and exploring how you can define identity, of how you can, define, no, not divine, define, right? Yeah, it sounds like divine, but it's like define. Yeah. It's divine and it's define. It's Alexander McQueen. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But that's
actually in the early days of being on forums before there were social media, etc. I actually went to fashion universities forums and showed them my concept art and had discussions with them. And they would say like, oh, that couldn't work because when you make the dress, it will break, you know, when they move, etc. So it was quite interesting to hear the practical feedback from students at the fashion colleges.
All right. Nice.
So from the books that you liked, I think the application to the book you made, which I had the pleasure to work with you on, is quite different, because I think a lot of people who picked up the book were I wouldn't say surprised, because they knew what you were doing, because your stuff is basically everywhere. but there's hardly anything to find from the stuff that you just showed us, from the 4 books that you just presented us, in what you did yourself. So with everything you've done in terms of analyzing your books, the books that you like and everything, you again created something pretty much entirely different. I'm gonna quickly flip through the book, so the people can check it out. So from what you have in the book, aside from the sketches that come a bit later, the focus was also to tell a bit of a story. Mm-hmm. So what you did was adding a text to the character, because whoever is following your streams knows that you are trying to always tell a story, even though what you're doing is opposing character. So in terms of illustration, what you're doing is like adding little assets, little pointers towards what kind of creature we're looking at, especially when you're creating. I remember explaining this really well in one of your streams where we were talking about this huge troll, or what it was, and he had this armor made of like basically small armor parts of his were the armors of the people he killed, mm-hmm. You know, and having shield on his shoes and stuff like that. I remember how you really well explain things in that direction. Mm. So how much do you write when you are creating your characters? Is this something that you usually do? Is writing a part of this?
Well, not in literally text, like as in typing it out, but I definitely create stories and bubbles of information for each creation, because it's like a tool that you can use. I learned this by actual game designer, Ernest Adams. Which a book I'm in, actually. He put me in his book because I blew his mind of when I was too creative. He said,
"What's the name of that book?"
Fundamentals of Game Design by Ernest Adams. Mm-hmm. And I did a workshop with him where he gave us a random word. So he gave me this word about Mongols.
Yeah.
So I had just one word, and I started creating this universe of who this person is. It was a little girl that was shooting spirit arrows powered by her ancestors, and Genghis Khan was an otherworld demon that had come to Earth, and blah blah blah. I only had a few hours, I think 2 or 3 hours, but I drafted maybe 20 drawings and all this story about her and why she looks the way she looks, why Genghis Khan's demons look the way they do, and blah blah blah. And I presented it to him, and he just stood there with an open mouth, and it's like, okay. What's your name?
Yeah.
And he put me in the book. But in that sense, like you can use these kind of stories to inform the drawing, and the drawing can inform the story. And if you can't break the story, like by if something breaks by putting something in, you know it's not necessary. And by choosing words carefully, like if you want to express yourself, you don't want to waste words, or you don't want to waffle on, or you don't want to say too little. And it's about like finding that balance, even in the creative process, where you make a character, you design someone. Like how big are that demon's vampire's wings? Is it big or small? And if you say they're small, it will inform something, you know. Or if they're really, really big. And so it's
only fashion, it's not for function, right?
Yeah. Oh, what nice wings you have.
Yeah. And whenever I talk to an artist, it's often that they bring up something like, it's always my dream to make a book. Now you have made books already, just not printed, because you have like a fuck ton of art of sketchbooks like stashed in your rooms, and it's like so much. It's how many are they? You surely have counted them. How many
70?
are they? Around 70. Around 70.
70.
Yeah. 200 pages per book.
So 70 sketchbooks full of stuff, and then we were making this book about creatures, and you were like, all right, I'm gonna pick some. How did that work? Like, did you just go to the latest ones and we're like, okay, I'm just gonna take some of them out there, or?
I went through most of them. The problem is that it's not only like we did a fantasy book together.
Yeah.
I don't just draw fantasy monsters. I draw
But
robots.
mostly, right?
No, I draw
I
everything.
would assume. Okay.
So this is just the kind of pics of the fantasy sketches that I put in this book in the back. But yeah, I have. The thing is like I mentioned, I'm in pre-production a lot, but I'm also starting to kind of define or helping to define a new genre of employment, which is IP development. So I've done a lot of personal IPs, which is like this art book we made together, but for a specific project or a specific world where I break everything down, and then with this package, we sell them to studios for studios to take and produce.
Like Netflix is doing, basically buying IPs of others and producing something from that.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
No,
you are. Okay. I remember when we were starting this out that because you're such a calm guy, you were like okay, yeah, I'm excited and everything, and then at some point the book was done, right? And you had it, and then you were really excited. I've never seen you like that. How was that? Like, how was this step from feeling like I have to make a book to actually having one? Because you were basically also taking it around and looking through it and reflecting, probably trying to find new ways to make more. Because the first thing you were like, when my son was born, right? When I showed it to him the first time to my mother, she was like, "When's the second one coming?" Right?
Yeah.
And you were like that. You were exactly like that. You basically were just having this art book fever. You were like, okay, I want to make another one because it was such a thrill for you. How was that? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me was I'm in countless concept art books.
Yeah.
I've worked on over 100 projects in the gaming industry.
Yeah.
Multiple BAFTA award-winning games, Game of the Years. I'm in all those art books, and it kind of waters down, or you get jaded after a while. It's like, oh, I'm in another art book.
Oh my God.
Like, here, look, Alien. I'm so special. But actually creating my own art book, which is all mine, and it's not someone else's world. It's not someone else's IP. It is my and your baby. Which made me like, oh, what is the next thing I want to make? I want to make another one. But the prospect of having a new physical entity, much like like his fashion, like he has concepted, he's made them real. Someone can buy it and wear it, and it's a little bit different when you create digital art. It's that there's no kind of you can't touch it.
Yes.
It is that digital entity, and especially games as well. Like, oh, there's games I can touch the thing, but the world that you operate inside that game you can't touch.
It doesn't feel like a product. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
It has absolutely different meaning in the sense of as the creator. So when we finished this book, I was done making it, and it was all in the hands of others, of printing, etc. I instantly started thinking about my next one, which I'm super excited about.
Which will come next year.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, and when doing this art books and maybe your next one, I can also imagine that what you just mentioned before, that's like you add something to somebody else's ideas, right? So when you're doing concept art and you see those art books of the countless amount of projects you were part of, I can also imagine that, don't you ever have the ambition to tell your story, to create your own story, or and make a book that actually is all, this is kind of a collection, but I can also imagine to create your world and entirely you're the director, you're the storyteller. Is that some of your ambitions?
Yeah, I've I'd say 5 to 10 years. I've been exploring that aspect. I have gone into movies, and we're location scouting for a movie, which is my universe together with a scriptwriter. Also making my own games and things like that on the side, because I think it's really. I think there comes a point where you've done so much and you've created so much that you have leveled up to the point where just drawing for someone else becomes uninspiring. You want to infuse more of your vision of who you are as a creative, because you've been doing it for so many years and doing it for someone else and being occasionally infuriated by some of the creative decisions that are being made, because in game production especially, not every decision that's being made is made by artists. There are so many business people, so many analytics, so many focus groups, etc., that all filtrate down into the pyramid of what you have to take into consideration as a creative. So being able to be higher up in that pyramid of, say, dictating more strongly is a super fascinating thing, but it also requires a huge skill set. And I'm glad to have gone down this road for so many years that I have acquired that skill set, and I'm now able to infuse the industry with my own creation.
We can't wait, Björn, to see what's coming up. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and all your influences and sources. Thank you so much, and hopefully we see each other soon for real. Also, thank you so much, Spiridon, with again that amount of intelligent questions and remarks. All right, I also hope you enjoyed this episode of The Book Club, and see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.